The Man Whore podcast is sponsored by Alt Playground. APG is more than just a place to find couples to swap with. Alt Playground is a lifestyle community for all non-monogamous and sexually adventurous people to connect and share. And you know I started a profile. Join me over at altplayground.net, that's altplayground.net. Support for the Man Whore podcast comes from Promescent, the delay spray to help dick havers last longer in bed. I hate it when she's going, don't stop, don't stop, don't stop. And I'm thinking, if I don't stop, then this part of the sex is going to be over real soon. Now, Promescent won't make your partner come, but it'll give you more time to figure it out. I use just a couple sprays and wow, definitely makes my cock feel ready for the long haul. And you can get 15% off your bottle of Climax Control Spray or any of Promescent's wellness products when you use promo code MANWHORE15 at promescent.com. Again, free shipping on most orders and 15% off at Promescent, PROMESCENT.com with promo code MANWHORE15. Now let's get to the show.
Welcome to the Man Whore Podcast.
Shout out to the trans tops, bi bottoms, and asexual condom fairies. This is Billy Procida, and you are listening to the Man Whore Podcast. This week, my guest is the co-host of the Shameless Sex podcast, Amy Baldwin. And I'm really looking forward to chatting with her in a little bit. But first, folks, this is going to be a weird announcement. But, the NFL plans on having a season still. Isn't that cute? But for as long as there's going to be an NFL season, that means there's going to be a fantasy football season. And for every year that there's been a Man Whore podcast, there's been a Fan Whore Fantasy Football League. And it is time to solicit some sign-ups. All right. If you're interested in joining our Fantasy Football League with some fellow fan whores, shoot me an email. It is a $30 buy-in, 0.5 PPR. Half point PPR. We do 10 to 12 teams depending on the interest level. We do it over on the Yahoo. And yeah, I do have a contingency backup plan should, the NFL cancel their season in week 4 like I'm expecting. I got some plan. So again, if you're interested in playing, shoot me an email at manwhorepod@gmail.com. We'll be drafting the week before game 1. I've got neighbors who consistently have parties literally every day in their backyard with a bunch of random people. It's like every day's a birthday party. I'm like, how many fucking birthdays do you have? Stop it. Ugh. Can't you just have a Zoom orgy like the rest of us freaks? I don't know. I want to read a few messages from you fine folks. Next email comes, subject line podcast, love and official introduction. She writes, hi, Billy. My name is Julia. I heard about the Man Whore podcast via an appearance you did on another show, then looked it up before the other one was even finished. My initial interest had very little to do with your content, though. Are you ready for this? I'm originally from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Whenever I hear an accent and slang from anywhere close to that area, I always get a little nostalgic. What's really neato, I've never seen that word typed out. What's really neato is that you happen to sound almost exactly like one of my best friends from back in the day. Tone, word choice, everything. It's insane. Anyway, I moved away a year after graduating high school many moons ago. And this friend, Mark, he was a crazy fucker who had protected me probably more times than I know about. And he was one of the very few people I kept in touch with over the years. However, he fell off the grid a while back. And I've been missing the hell out of that kid. So when I heard you the first time on that other podcast, I had an immediate visceral reaction. I had to hear more. It was like I found a surrogate for my dear friend who's been MIA since around 2016. However, the reasons why I jumped straight into binge listening after that are pretty normal and all about your content. I've been skipping around between new episodes and old ones. It's incredibly cool to hear your emotional maturity and confidence levels change from then until now. That stuff would have been impossible to notice in weekly increments along the way. So, yay for the interwebs, and thank you for years worth of personal stories that most people would never dream of sharing. Love it all. I'm thrilled to be a Patreon supporter and can't wait to get back to the... Oh gosh. And can't wait to get back to the 300 or so man-whore hours I have yet to absorb. Perhaps someday when the world no longer appears to be ending, I'll actually get off my ass to go visit my sister in Philly. I'd love to meet up to chat for a bit and hopefully give you a hug. For now, see you around the social media. Aw, Julia, you're welcome to give me a hug when, the world is less terrifying. Come on now. No, thank you so much for such a kind email. The thought that so many people who binge listen to the show and then email me, there's always this commentary about how much I've grown and changed in emotional maturity. And I go fuck, how bad was I when I was 24? I knew I was kind of a shithead, but how bad was I a shithead that's clearly noticeable to total strangers? But I appreciate the email, Julia. Keep them coming. Don't be a stranger. All right, this last one's kind of cheeky. Just the subject line is bumper sticker from Jamie. She's a longtime fan whore. She wrote in, "Hey, Billy, I just had someone very excitedly honk at the honk if you're into consent bumper sticker I got from you. Once while they were driving behind me and then multiple times when I turned into my driveway. I just hope they start listening to the podcast too. I get random beeps sometimes before realizing it's likely because of the sticker. Well, either that or I'm cutting a lot of people off. Have a good day, Jamie." Jamie, I get nervous about that too, because I feel like having the bumper sticker on my car makes me like a representative for the podcast, because I still don't believe my own hype. So I think people see my bumper sticker on my car and think, here's some douchebag promoting his podcast and he just cut me off. I'm going to go leave him 1 star. When, the reality is probably that's when someone has a bumper sticker of a podcast on their car, it's usually because they're a fan of that podcast, right? And, I refuse to accept y'all's love for some reason still. But, Jamie, I like to think that the bumper sticker keeps me honest. Cause if you're really into consent, but not safe driving, are you decent? I don't think so. But I'm glad you're having fun with it. By the way, if you're interested in getting one of those bumper stickers or any other Man Whore Podcast merch, head on over to the Man Whore Podcast Facebook fan page. Click the shop button and it's all right there, baby. We got stickers, buttons, t-shirts, panties, all the good stuff. And you too can email me your comments, your questions, your criticisms, your booby pictures with Man Whore Podcast sprawled across the chest, whatever you want. Send it on over to manwhorepod@gmail.com. Before we get to this week's guest, Amy Baldwin, it's time to do the Fan Whore Appreciation Moment. Okay. This is the part of the podcast where I like to send a few shout outs to members of my Fan Whore community on Patreon. You just heard an email from Julia who said she just joined up and she's only 40 episodes in. What's your excuse? But this is a little portion of the show I like to give some love. I want to show some love for Matthew Bellwar, who, when I looked up to try to find out something about you to say, I can only deduce that you are either an analyst, an aspiring blogger, or a CIA agent with no internet presence. I think 2 of those jobs pay pretty well. So, cool, man. Thanks for supporting the show. Shout out to Priya Strongleaf. What a name, Priya Strongleaf. It's elegant, it's classy. There's a touch of captivation with a name like Priya, and then Strongleaf. There's strength in that name, literally strong. And then it ends very soft and whimsical with a leaf. Love it. Love it. Thanks for supporting the show, Priya. Thanks for being a member. And you too can become a member of Fan Whore Nation for as little as $2, and you'll get to enjoy access to private, sex-positive discussion groups and access to bonus episodes of the Man Whore content, a little extra access to yours truly, and so much more. Become a member today. Seriously, I think it's time that you became a member. I think it's episode 341. The bill is due. So become a member today for as little as $2 at patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. That's Patreon, patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. And now for this week's guest, Amy Baldwin. Yes, the sex educator, coach, sex toy shop co-owner with her mom, and the co-host of the ever popular Shameless Sex podcast. Amy and I chatted the other day remotely over the internet thing. I don't gotta say anything more. Let's go talk to Amy Baldwin. The Man Whore Podcast is sponsored by altplayground.net, the lifestyle site for your next non-monogamous adventure. So many new members are jumping on board at APG, and it's been awesome seeing all their sexy photos like pop up on the big wall, which is one of the features on the site where people just like share sexy photos of themselves, and it just kind of goes out onto the front page of the site. It's awesome. And since its national launch on June 1st, the site is seeing record numbers of new people eager to connect and share. APG is focused on creating an inclusive and sexy space for all sorts of sex-positive people, and you can join the fun yourself. Come find me over there. You know I've got a profile. Join me over at altplayground.net and start planting the seeds for your next non-monogamous adventure. When like the world is like less terrifying to go out into the public in. But come on over there, altplayground.net. That's altplayground.net. Come find me. Who's going to pay for it is not just a lame Republican refrain that they use to get away with not paying for a lot of really important social services like, universal health care. Who's going to pay for it is also something we should be saying when we're talking about porn. You're cooped up, you're home right now, and we know it's okay. You're watching porn. In fact, there's a good chance you're watching more porn than you usually do. And I'm asking, who's paying for it? Better be you. An adult entertainment industry insider once told me that if every person who consumes porn, which is like everyone, if everyone who consumes porn gave $100 a year into the industry, we'd be back in the golden age of porn. We'd be in the platinum age of porn. And we should, because these girls, these guys, these people, they all work so hard to bring you hot, sexy content. And so much of that content is available at hotmovies.com. Hotmovies.com is a pay-per-minute porn site, which makes it both an ethical and affordable way to hashtag pay for some of your porn. So again, go to hotmovies.com today. Use promo code MANWHORE. Enjoy your extra minutes and hashtag pay for some of that porn.
This was post-college. She moved to Santa Cruz when I was 20. She was 21. We got a job working in the restaurant industry at the same place. Oh, I was already working there. She got hired. I was probably the first friend that she met in Santa Cruz, and we instantly bonded. I was already on the path I was going to school for psychology and human sexuality and was going to open up a sex shop here in Santa Cruz, and became BFFs, and I'm the one that brought her into the industry. So I brought her in working at our retail store as our manager. I gave her first vibrator. I brought to her first trade shows. I introduced her to the first company that hired her, which was Fun Factory.
But she didn't know like any of this stuff. Like she seemed kind of like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, be like, what? A vibrator?
Yeah. Yeah. What's this? Me? I could do this stuff? Yeah. Well, exactly.
What's that like? What's that conversation like when you realize that your new BFF is like clueless on the sex stuff that you're not like studying and pursuing professionally?
It was common that a lot of people are not on that path, so it's nothing new to me to see folks that are, or to befriend folks that are not there. What happens for me is probably for you too, when we become friends with people or just meet strangers, all of a sudden we're talking about sex. It just happens. So, it was an honor. It was an honor to bring her on this path and give her her first vibrator. And she's just someone that I've always seen her potential. She's been on your podcast before. I call her kind of like a social savant. She's capable of learning about anything, teaching anything. She's just a powerful force. So I've always seen her potential, and I was like, oh, we're going to do things. It's going to happen. So yeah.
You looked at her like, whatever many years ago and was like, We're going to start a little mini sex empire together. I can see it.
Yes. We knew. I mean, now I'm 35. So when I met her when I was 20, and we knew that we were always going to do some sort of big passion project. We just didn't know what it would be. It didn't come to us until we went on Sex with Emily in 2016 or 17, actually, early 2017. And that's when we knew what it would be. But we've been traveling on the road together side by side, teaching about sex toys. I work for Uberlube. She works for Hot Octopus. And so we travel. Well, right now we're not traveling because of COVID, but we've been, side by side talking about sex toys for going on, 8 or 9 years now. So it's been quite a journey for us.
That's fantastic. And a good time for me to say I'm chatting right now with Amy Baldwin, the other half of the Shameless Sex podcast and sex educator and a sex toy shop owner in her own right.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's me. I have lots of titles.
Wait, do you remember what the sex toy was you gave her?
Yes, it was actually so interesting. It was made by Fun Factory, who later hired her like 2 or 3 years later. And it was called the Laya Spot, Laya. They still make it, and it's a revamped version, but it's an external clitoral vibe that's good for couples play. And I was like, this is a good starter sex toy for you. Since then,
wait, is that the one that looks
evolved.
like a little alien that holds open the lips? Is it that one?
No, I know what you're talking about. It's like a bug. No, that's
that one I don't
that's
understand.
by Dame.
I'm too scared to try that one.
That's by Dame. I haven't even tried that. Oh, no, maybe I have once. But no, the Laya Spot is the one that contours the pubic bone. So there's a part that goes on the clitoris and then a part that goes up kind of on the mons, mons pubis over the pubic region or pubic hair if you have pubic hair. And you hold it in place. So you can still do couples play and have someone laying on top of you or you on your stomach. And yeah, now she's a magic wand girl. So I don't have anything to do with that.
A magic wand brat. Okay. Yeah. I feel like that's a very particular time.
Power Queen.
Power Queen.
Yeah.
Love that. Well, what was your introduction to sexuality? Your home space seems very open.
Yes. Well, I live in Santa Cruz, everyone. So Santa Cruz is known to be a little more progressive. Santa Cruz, California, raised by a very, I would say, fiscally conservative Republican father but is open-minded about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. But when it comes to all other aspects of politics, is a different perspective. But so he didn't talk to me about sex. He actually, when I was a teenager, I'd have partners over and I could do whatever I want. I could be in the room with my boyfriend and he was never like, oh, I need to meet. He didn't care, which there's a beauty to it. I had a lot of freedom. That was wonderful. But the downfall was that he didn't care. And, we kind of want them to care. Like we want them to still show up for us and have, so I had this mixed bag with him where I knew sex wasn't shameful because I was allowed to do it. But
It's
I
like
didn't
shame
have
me a
father
little
figure.
bit, just like a little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or just,
like a
I also
fatherly
wanted
amount.
a father figure. Yeah, you still want him to like show that he's really cares and is concerned for my well-being. My dog's squeaking in the background.
Sorry.
So there was that. So I developed daddy issues, but more so around the emotional side of sex. My mom is very different, very progressive, very open-minded, talked to me about sex, not about pleasure, but about safety. Before I was sexually active, she told me that whenever I want to get put on birth control, I could just come to her. And I knew from a young age that she was an ally and a supporter and that sex was normal and okay and that I wasn't going to be kicked out of my family for it. And so but still, because pleasure wasn't the conversation, and obviously we know that the school system doesn't talk about that, I still made a lot of errors around pleasure, but I made a lot of really great choices around safety, with, STIs and safer sex, and made errors there too. Because I am a woman and I'm a product of this culture that really doesn't preach agency, I think, for women's sexual pleasure.
What was like the talks about, say, I mean, and it's not like we were using this language as much back then, but what was the talks about like consent and bodily autonomy like growing up?
I don't think I really got a lot of it. I was not a masturbator as a kid, so I was never caught masturbating and told that, that's normal and okay, and just do it behind closed doors. I think I have this memory of being really young and being so interested in the smell of my vagina and my vulva. And I don't know, I'm like 5. I'm like, this is and I kind of liked it, the smell. I was like, wow, this is so interesting. Wonder what my mom thinks about it. And so instead of asking her, I just like touched my vulva and I went up to her. I'm like, Mom, smell this. And her response was a little bit like, I think she knew what was up, and she was a little bit, I think now that I look back at it, it maybe was a little shaming because she didn't actually outright say, acknowledge what it was and like, well, that's normal for you to be interested in this part of you. It was more like she was a little not repulsed but thrown off, and I was like, this is bad, I shouldn't talk about this, and like no one wants to know what this is. I'm not going to talk about it.
When really the lesson there is we just don't shove our fingers in people's faces. Like that was the true lesson to learn, not that your vulva was shameful.
But I'm a kid. I'm 5. I didn't know that yet. I didn't know that part of it yet. And I was like, this smells good to me. Maybe she'll like it too. I don't know. And I mean, now we know in the sex ed world, we know that, when kids show their interest in their bodies, what is most helpful to create, healthy adults and their relationship to their bodies and their sexuality is to normalize it and give permission while educating them on safety and consent. So I didn't get consent from my mom. I just put some fingers in her face. And I think the way would have been for her to say, it's completely normal for you to have this interest in your body, and your body is, it's sacred, or it's, this is fine. Like you're obviously curious about this, and, other people might not want to smell this from your body, and so this is just something for you and for you to explore behind closed doors in your bedroom. So yeah.
When you're home, you can sniff away. At school, please. Yeah. I don't need that phone call.
Yeah. No, they're like, oh shit, she did it again.
Wait, dude, and those childhood like self-discovery stuff is so odd. Like I think someone asked me like a few weeks ago, like what was the first like sex toy? What was the first object that I used as a sex toy? Because like when you're a kid, you probably don't have access to sex toys. You just find stuff in the house. So like for me, it was like Sharpie markers, and like I think the handle of a plunger. Because like I think I was curious about butt stuff when I was like in grade school or early high school, and not like understanding what that was. But I just knew that, like, oh, that feels good. Oh, it's the Sharpie. It's a lot smoother than a pencil. So let's use that. Right. So I was like, I don't know, like, did you ever like makeshift sex toys out of home objects?
First of all, I'm glad that your ass didn't to just absorb that Sharpie. By the way, not anal safe. But
yeah, no flared base.
Now
like
that
is I was really
no
lucky.
Flared base on a Sharpie. So I actually wish I was more of a masturbator when I was younger. You explore more of like the smell of it or different sensations, but but didn't really dive deep into like, humping my teddy bear. My dog. So he does this thing where he chews his back foot like it's his best friend. He's having a doggasm right now.
Wait, the chewing the leg is a good or bad thing? Because I hear that, I think he's biting it, going, "Ow, that hurts," and then doing it over and over again.
No, it's more like he's feeling pleasure and joy. He's having a good time right now. I don't.
That's like half
there's something erotic going on.
Yeah,
with it.
That's something to look
It usually gets inspired. So he usually does it. I can show you right now.
Sure.
He actually usually does it and then humps his dog bed. He's humping his dog bed now. You can see him. My dog is a very sexual being.
You picked the right one.
So yes, so anyways, I think it's really great when young people explore their bodies and understand what feels good, like you exploring butt stuff. I think it helps, as long as people aren't shaming you along the way, it helps you to develop into an adult who knows what you like. And I, for some reason, more explored like the functions of my body as opposed to the pleasure. I remember being a young teen and when I was 10, I had rape fantasies for the first time, watching an episode of Melrose Place and seeing a rape scene. And I've never been been raped. I've had, coercion before and had done things that I wasn't enjoying. I didn't say no, but it didn't come from a place of a lot of sexual abuse and trauma. But I was turned on by it. And so there's no like real background story as to why that happened.
Do you remember like what the thoughts in your head were of like were you seeing that in Melrose Place and going like, that's hot, or she seems really desired by that guy? Like, do you remember like kind of like what that was about at that young age?
I think at 10, it's more so that I feel a thing in my body and I don't know why, but it feels good. And so I felt a turn on and pleasure. And then I would play with that fantasy after that. I would just play with it in my head, not touching my body though at the same time. I would like walk around in my backyard. We had this big backyard that was like a vegetable garden, jungle. And I would tell stories in my head about rape, about being forced into something sexual, but it was always with someone that I wanted to have sex with, or, so it was never like, it's not something I've actually wanted to, I haven't even been interested in acting out rape and role play at this point, but I did grow up to be someone who does like being in a submissive role, does enjoy being dominated by a strong male figure, but I identify that as being related to my daddy issues as opposed to, to something that is based on trauma. So, and I felt in my early teens, at 13, I did felt horniness, arousal and desire, but I explored it more with like taking a shower and making out with a shower wall. I don't think I've ever said this to anyone before. I used to tell stories.
Can you say that? Wait, you made out with the shower wall?
Yes, I would do this often.
Amy, I also made out with the shower wall as a kid.
Oh my God, maybe we were making out with each other from afar.
I haven't remembered or thought about this fucking ever until you just said it.
I know, like, me either.
Wait, is that what I was doing? Because I'd have my like tongue up on the thing on the wall, being like, "This feels this feels good."
Yeah. Yes.
Oh my
yeah.
God.
It was like a practice ground for like living out some sort of fantasy, and the shower is your own private space. And I would like live it out and take this long shower and like make out with the shower wall as if it was a human. And yeah. Oh my God. I can't believe we share that. And I can't believe that I haven't talked about it since then. And you're just remembering.
I'm going to have to journal after this podcast.
This is a therapy session, everyone.
It's a podcast, therapy, same thing. It is interesting because like I even still today, like I don't make out with the wall today, unless I'm feeling frisky, but like I don't do that, but I do like the sensation of pressing my like face, like the side of my face up against the wall as if I'm being pressed against it. That feels really good for me because it almost feels like I'm being taken in the shower, like and I'll do it sometimes with like my girlfriend where like if she's doing stuff with me in the shower, I'll push my own face up against it. She won't take the hint, but like even if I'm like alone, I'll be like, it feels good to be pressed against something kind of cold and sleek. I don't know what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a nice pressure there, and yeah, it's a good, and it's private time.
Yeah.
It's a private time exploration, right? And it's different from making out with like the wall in your bedroom. For some reason, that never seemed desirable.
No.
It was like, and also you're naked, and there's something about it that just kind of sets
everything's
that up,
wet.
and yeah, everything's wet. So I think that was more of my own personal erotic exploration, had less to do with touching my genitals for pleasure and more about using my body and living out kind of like some role play. At that point, I don't think I'd ever even made out with anyone, but I was playing around with a wall.
But when you're a kid, you're like, your imagination is fucking going wild. And so why wouldn't it also go in this like erotic direction? I mean, like I was a kid, I would always pretend I was like in my own TV show, or like I was, the star of something happening, or I would act out some whatever fun thing in the backyard, or I'd be in the shower, like kind of pretending I'm making out with the cute girl in math class, like except it's the shower wall. Holy shit. But when did you like finally start to discover masturbation, since you weren't one of the early adopters?
I went a kind of a weird route that I won't say I have regrets over, but I think that if I had had pleasure education at a younger age, I would have gone a different route, because the first routes that we go, they do set defaults, strong neural pathways in our brains about how we receive pleasure. And so I started to be sexually active more so. Like, I'm not, when I say sexually active, making out wasn't really a part of, I don't put that in that category, but like when in regards to my genitals being touched or touching other genitals, or genital and genital touch, more so 15 and 16. And my first couple sexual partners, they never went down on me. They kind of finger banged me. Fucking hate that term, but that's what it felt like. Great. It's a great term for it. The first time my pussy got touched was with this guy that I wasn't even into, but my girlfriends were hooking up with other guys, so I just went with it. And the song "You and Me, Baby, Ain't Nothing But Mammals, so Let's Do It Like They Do on the Discovery Channel" was playing on the background.
The bad
PTSD, yo, when I hear that,
I mean,
I'm like,
the title of the song is "The Bad Touch." Like, it couldn't be more of an omen.
I know. Oh my God. And it was, and I think that itself set a default in my brain. And that pleasure maybe is not, or that touch on my pussy isn't enjoyable. And then my first sexual partners, I would go down on them, or we would have penetrative sex, but they never went down on me. I didn't know how to ask for it. They didn't offer it. And then when people started to go down on me, I was very squeamish and uncomfortable. It took me years to overcome that, and still can be a barrier to this day. And so I didn't start actually masturbating until 18. I explored with my fingers and hands a little bit. I'd already had sex with maybe 4 people. Didn't really feel a lot with my hands. Ordered a vibrator from another local sex shop here in Santa Cruz, a shitty rubber jelly one that kind of made my pussy burn and didn't get me off. And I was like, all right, maybe I'll get a different one. For some reason, I figured out that I should order this external vibe that's still on the market. It's called the Water Dancer, and it's a 1-speed, kind of like a pocket rocket, small, powerful vibrator. And I had a boyfriend at the time, and while I had already had sex with 4 different people, and I had a regular partner at that time, I had never had an orgasm. And I had my first orgasm with this very powerful 1-speed vibrator, and I ejaculated my first orgasm. I was like, what's this? But I knew what this was. And little did I know, my mom is kind of a squirter. Her mom was a squirter. We have a family of squirters. And
I come from a long line
genetic.
of squirters.
Yeah. Apparently it's genetic. And no, it's not. I don't know. I'm not gonna say it's actually genetic.
Why do you know that your mom and your grandmom were squirters?
Well, my mom and I eventually opened a sex shop together.
Okay, that one's fair. Sorry, your mom. That one's fair. But like, why do either of you know that your grandma was a squirter?
This is the interesting part about my lineage. My grandfather, her dad, a Jewish man who's very chauvinistic, was a TV repairman. And when porn was illegal, he sold porn on the black market on VHS.
Got you the good channels.
And so he was actually very open to talking about sex. And her mom, his wife, was a very just unempowered woman. She never learned how to drive, swim, or ride a bike. And they had a lot of sex. One of those is
essential to not dying.
Yeah, those are very important things to know.
Like, you can't vote, you can't drive, and you can't do that. But we gotta teach you how to swim, just in case.
You got. I mean, just so you could at least learn some skills in this world. But so I don't think my mom's mom told her I'm a squirter. Her dad was very open to talking about sex, and I think that she learned more so from him. I could be wrong. I should probably do more research about that. But his later years in life, when he was losing his hearing, he still had those VHSs, and he'd watch them on the big screen TV on like cranked up volume. And my mom would walk in. She's like, "Dad, the neighbors," and he just watched porn like with his wife there.
What?
My mom walking in.
What?
Yeah.
No, it's the double anal scene. No, Amy. No, it's the double anal.
Yeah, and when he would ask her, to my mom, he'd be like, "Do you want any of these VHSs? Do you like anything? What are you into? Girl on girl?" So
amazing.
This is my grandfather, everyone.
Well, I want to talk about you and your mom in a minute, because like that was when April told me that I was like, I'm fascinated. Why am I not staying here longer to talk more about it? But a quick question, like I very frequently think like I would very much enjoy like a day or maybe even like a week with a vagina and a vulva and all the fun, preferably not with the horrors of society that come with it, but like, hey, if that's what it comes with, it comes with. But, you're talking about finger blasting and I go like, what does it feel like when you're being fingered badly? Like, does it just feel like there are fingers inside you, or does it feel like what is like how bad or whatever is that feeling?
I would say if you took your own fingers and just started poking at your taint and your asshole, with or without lube, but just kind of poking and prying, like you didn't really know what you were doing. You were not paying attention to the response of the person. There was no communication. You weren't necessarily going slow and like feeling the texture of the skin and all those things. It would feel similar to that. It's just someone kind of like jabbing at you in a little bit of an irritating way in a very vulnerable place.
And you just lay there and you are just watching him fumble with it. Like Will Hunting when he like burns that one formula or that he worked on. He's like, you see this? This is so fucking easy for me. I can't sit here and watch you all fuck this up. Except it's like your pussy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That sounds horrid.
And you're 13 and no one told you, and you didn't know about the pleasure that you could advocate for, and you didn't know, and with someone who also has daddy issues and is a caretaker of not just men's emotional state, not that they make me do that, but it's a socially constructed thing that I've learned and that I work with. It was just scary. It was scary to say like, oh, that actually doesn't feel good. All my girlfriends are hooking up with your friends, but I'm going to be the girl to like say no and then sit alone in the corner. So it's a weird setup that we live in. That is, unfortunate, I think.
And when did you finally learn that you're allowed to feel good during sex?
I started to when I think when I was 18 and had a consistent boyfriend who cared, but I still had my own barriers and trauma to overcome there. But someone who cared.
Isn't it crazy that that's the first barrier to like having a partner who wants to get you off? First, they just have to care, and that's not even the half of it. It's not even bringing in technique or anything. That's just like you have to give a shit to try, and that's hard apparently to find, from what I'm told.
Yeah, it's crazy. They have to show that it's not all about them, that they care about your pleasure and your joy. And in fact, what's even better is not that they just care, that they get turned on by it, that they value it, that they want to take their time, that it's not all about them. And like if they're doing a good job or their orgasm and their pleasure, and they're more like, I really genuinely care about your pleasure. I'm not going to rush anything. I'm going to take my time with you. I can't say that every partner has been that. And for me, it's always been kind of like 2 steps forward, 1 step back along the journey of learning a lot more. But I would say the lesson started about advocating for my pleasure and having better sex when I was 18, but didn't get really solidified until probably my late 20s. Through a lot of trial and error and also a lot of education, the reason why I became a sex educator was because I didn't get this thing. It was like people talk about sex as feeling really good. And, so it's easy to have these orgasms and like, but my body isn't working that way. And I have these people that want to pleasure me, but it's just, half the time it feels like someone's just kind of poking at me. And so like, I want to learn about this stuff because it's very confusing.
Well, so you were the sex educator who like wasn't having great sex herself, but was still trying to help other people have good sex. Wow. Well, then how'd you?
I became that. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so now, how do we get to the point where you opened a sex toy shop with your mother?
Well, one fine day. So I went to school for psychology and human sexuality because I was already saying I had all these questions. And I already had a knack for talking really openly about sex and relationships with people. I've always been one to, I think, own more of my vulnerability about the things that we don't usually talk about. And then as a caretaker, caregiver type, the person that people go to for support. And so I went to school in San Francisco for psychology and human sexuality. And we went on a field trip there one day to Good Vibrations, the local sex positive sex shop. They now have like 15 stores across the country. And my mom was looking for a business investment at that time, and she wanted to do something that empowered women because her mom was such an unempowered woman. And she had inherited a little money when her parents passed, and she wanted to put that into a some sort of business. And so I saw Good Vibrations, and I called her, and I was like, and my mom and I already had this very open relationship to talk about everything. And I said, Mom, I remember exactly where I was when I called her. I was like, Mom, this is what we should do. We should open up a sex shop, and it's educational based. We do classes weekly. We sell sex toys, but our employees are educators, and we're helping people have better sex and relationships. And at first she was like, really? Me working in a sex shop? And I was like, well, no, I'll work in the shop. You'll be behind closed doors. And we started working on the concept. We worked on it for 2 years. And here's the coolest part for you, by the way. This is my weird fucking life.
Like it's not cool enough as is.
Here's the sitcom that we could create, or some sort of drama. So we decide we're going to open the sex shop. We work on it for 2 years. We go out to dinner one night, and we hadn't found a place to sign a lease yet for the shop. We see a for rent sign across the street, and it's next to this family dentistry that this guy I went to high school owns. Or sorry, his family owns it. So we approach them, and we're like, they're the landlords. They're not going to want a sex shop next to their family dentistry. We had a whole business plan printed out. They were like, yeah, we want this. Yeah, go ahead. And they instantly were like, yeah, let's sign the lease. We signed the lease. Their son is the finger banger.
Oh,
their son.
Did you know that right away, or did you?
I knew. And I was like, how fucking weird is this? That the people that are our landlords for our sex shop that's promoting education and sex positivity are the parents of the guy that first touched my pussy and poked and prodded at it into the "you and me, baby, ain't nothing but mammals. Let's do it like they do in the Discovery Channel."
Oh, were you just sitting there like in the negotiations, being like, "You guys fucking owe me for the bad fingering I got."
Yeah, you owe me for this shit. And what's interesting is they were the best landlords ever. They're, we were in that location for maybe 8 or 9 years. But guess what? I'm going to add to this. I'm not going to out him too much, but he graduated from school and started to help out with the family business. The first thing he did in helping out the family business was try to up our rent times 3. And I was like, oh my God, he's fucking me again.
Just spread him out and be like, hey, if you can make me come right now, fine.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'll pay you. But what ended up happening was we ended up being like, all right, fuck you. This is our excuse to get out of here. Your parents are awesome. You're not that great. And we actually found an even better location with better landlords. So.
The audacity that man has.
What a weird life.
Yeah. So it's been, you said, like, how long have you guys had the shop open now?
So this is another part of it. So we got very, very lucky. We sold the retail store in October, which is so great because there's COVID, and being in retail and having a storefront right now is very, very challenging. Here's another beauty. I have all these serendipitous, synchronicity things. We sold the store to Good Vibrations, who was our original inspiration for opening.
They went around buying
so cool.
all sorts of stuff. They bought Babeland. They all spending spree over.
We have a very close personal relationship with the owner, and I had already stepped away from working in the retail store because I went on to become a sex educator, sex and relationship coach, and a podcast. So to be working in the retail store just felt kind of funky. We have fans, and they come in. It's just and I was burnt out, and my mom is still working there and running it, and she hit a point just being really exhausted by that, and we put it out there that we were selling, and the owner of Good Vibrations, who is the original inspiration for opening Pure Pleasure, purchased it. So beautiful full circle, and we were really grateful for that. And I'm so grateful that we don't own a retail storefront, but we do own the website still. So purepleasureshop.com we still own, and if you go on there, everyone, you get 15% off with coupon code Shameless Sex and all your sex toys. And so still owned and run by my mother and I, and that's been great. I wear all these little hats in the sex industry or the human sexuality realm, and but working on retail floor is done. Thank the Lord, sweet baby Jesus.
Were there any particular struggles you had running a business with your mother? I mean, it doesn't, sex toy shop or not, like just running a business with family sounds extra stressful.
I have to say, my mom in particular is probably the best business partner I could have ever asked for. One, because we have the unconditional love. We also have this deep trust with each other because, we're family. Not all family members have that with each other, but we certainly do. And we had our different roles there, and we both, showed up, and we took a lot of pride in it and a lot of care because it was our livelihood, hers and mine. And it's probably the best business arrangement anyone could ask for. If it was a romantic partner, that's hard because you have all these projections on your romantic partner, a best friend, or just a colleague. That can get really messy too. And owning it with my mom was the best choice we both ever made. It worked out really well. We know how to communicate with each other. We know how to forgive. We know how to, when I'm a little bratty asshole of a kid, I can be like, Mom, I'm sorry, I was being a little bitch. And yeah. And then it helped us to open up more about sexuality with each other. And what's interesting is like in the mother-daughter relationship, talking about sex, I think there's often a lot more room, at least for us, for me to talk openly about sex. With her, she could talk openly, but there was a fine line, right? She could talk about sex with her partner and like, I have good orgasms. But one time she was like, when you have sex so much that you're raw, and I was like, oh no, too far, Mom, too far. Can't go there. Mom's talking about sex and raw in the same sentence. Like, Mom, you can talk about sex, but like, please, just the details about like the texture of your skin and the rawness, just no.
So at ManwhoreCon 2019, RIP ManwhoreCon 2020, by the way. Fuck. So at the last ManwhoreCon, one of the events was Meet Billy's Mom Q&A, an opportunity for like fans of the show to ask her why I am this way, And she starts it by saying, before anyone's asked a question, she's just like, Billy, I'd really like to share this one story, if you don't mind. And then like totally I'll take questions. I'm like, great. Now, my mother has never talked about her own sex life explicitly. She got divorced finally divorced right after I graduated college. She had some boyfriends during the various separations in high school and such. But I've never heard my mom refer to her sex life using explicit, like she's never mentioned her giving a blowjob. She has never even referenced her children's blowjobs, although she'll make like innuendos about things. But she's never like said the word blowjob in connection to anything that's like personal or connected. So she sits down and she's talking about the day she told my father that she was pregnant with me. And she was like, and it's something to do with like, I was on my period. So we were like not having sex because your father was not into that. And I'm like, it's been 12 seconds. Why am I hearing about period sex from Mom already? And then she's like, and then, I went out and then I started, dating again. I found that there's some men who are like really into that. I'm like, oh, fuck. Okay. Who's got a question? But she's not done. And she shared with my dad that she was pregnant with me, their first child. And because they weren't having sex, she says that he got the best blowjob of his life that day. And I'm like, and I'm sitting there at like 3 p.m. in front of like listeners of my show, not knowing what the fuck to do. I have interviewed some of like my exes. I've interviewed women who are not happy with me in this world. And that was the most uncomfortable I think I've been in like a sort of interview style setup. There's boundaries and I don't know where they are. And if anyone thinks it's sexist, I'll be like, you know what? My dad never talks about his sex life and I'm good with that. I'm fine. Just keep it that way.
There's something about us. Like, I mean, I think that there's about kids not wanting to sexualize their parents. And I think even parents not wanting to sexualize their kids is a thing too. And as open-minded as we are, as someone who doesn't buy into a lot of that stuff, I still am a product of this world. And so to sexualize my mom, as someone who I don't think I ever heard my parents have sex. I've heard my mom have sex with various partners later on in life. And it wasn't never weird for me. It was like, oh, is my mom like going for it right now? But so I'm very open-minded in that sense, but there is a line still. There is still a line there where, there are parents. So.
But I also wonder if talking about pleasure earlier, like what you said, your mom was open about sex from a safety angle, and like we didn't really talk about sex. My talk was my dad at like 15 tried to talk to me about sex, and he just said, and I had to keep interrupting him because I was like so not able to talk to girls. That was embarrassing that he was like raising the prospect of someone maybe want to have sex with me. So he's just like, wear a condom, and he left the room. That was it. And so I wonder if like talking about pleasure earlier would make those stories hearing them as adults, not as much a big deal, because like we had already been socialized by our parents that sex is not a big deal. Because I don't get that way with my sisters.
I think so.
You know, but I do with my like my mom.
I think I think there's so truth to that, and especially if you heard about pleasure from that person, from your parent who is talking about it, and your parent going up to their kid, and I think when my mom asked me if I wanted to get on birth or not that I wanted to, is that when I became sexually active that I could come to her, I was still like, shut up, mom. I didn't say shut up. I was like, I don't want to talk about this. And she gave me the book, Our Bodies, Ourselves. And I just was like, I don't want this. And I looked at it every day, so kids still are going to show up with that discomfort. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to talk about it. It doesn't mean that parents shouldn't still offer up those conversations over and over and over again. And that you can talk about it with kids, and they might not engage, and they may not, have response. They may say, I don't want to hear about it, but they're listening. They're taking it in, and that could still have an impact. So yeah, I think that if there would have been conversations about pleasure, and by the way, my mom is like the best mom a girl could ask for, and a parent is perfect, and so at any rate, I wonder what that'd be like to hear her talk about pleasure and orgasm, and how that would have shaped me, one, as a sexual being, and two, my capacity to see her as a sexual being later on.
Do you find were there things in owning the sex toy shop together that you have learned from each other? Did you learn something about sexuality from mom that you didn't learn growing up that you did in the business? Did she learn something from you think, since you were more like trained in sexuality?
I think I taught her a lot about, I mean, I was the one that was the educator that did a lot of the schooling. I went to school to learn all about sexuality and how to talk about it with non-judgment and all the terms and the inclusivity and gender pronouns and the variations and diversity of sexuality, and sex toys and all these different things. And so I was the one that was bringing in more of that education to her. I think that my mom along the way definitely taught me some things. We can't think of like the exact messages of what that was, but I think that our dynamic in particular, being unconventional, I think, and taught just these experiences I had just constantly taught me that there's not one way to be. There is no normal, that we get to make our own rules. I mean, my mom, when we opened the sex shop, she had dated men her whole life. She was with my dad for 17 years, probably should have got divorced before I was even born, and got engaged to 2 different men later on in life. And then 3 years into the sex shop, maybe 4 years, she's like, I'm going to date women, and started dating the ladies. Oh. She has her second girlfriend now. They've been together for like 3 or 4 years. They live together. And so she taught me from witnessing her about how fluid orientation is and sexuality is, and that by being exposed to more open-minded, or I guess opportunities to diversity and sexuality, that you could actually change or tap into something deeper in yourself that you thought wasn't part of you, her fluidity. So yeah, I think witnessing her and her journey showed me more about that like we have the ability to make our own rules. Some people, such as myself, I'm pretty straight, very much into the cock, and always have been. But I understand that could change, right? That I have had moments where that's shifted. And I'm like, whoa, like I'm having a PG-13 foursome with like 2 vulva owners here, and someone's making out with my armpit, and I'm ticklish. I don't even like that, but I'm turned on right now. So we are more shiftable, shapeable than we think we are. And we don't have to be. It doesn't mean we have to do all the things, but we can, and if we want to.
Have you been with women sexually?
Yeah, it's usually more like a research project, especially opening a sex shop. It's kind of similar to like hooking up with a guy I'm not that attracted to. For me, even like really attractive women, I've explored that more so. Like again, opening a sex shop, mean like I want to try these things. I obviously now I'm more tapped into that world, and I have never had a sexual experience. Sorry, that's not true. My first couple of sexual experiences with women always had a man involved. There's actually one man that was always there for those threesomes. And it's just a friend. And it just always felt like I was doing it for research / for the male gaze, in those experiences. And then, so I committed to not exploring it for those reasons later. And then I have had that pleasurable experience with vulva owning humans in that PG-13 foursome, and but there was a man there too, and I was much more into his touch, the one that was making out with my armpit. And at that point, it was interesting. My sexuality had been turned off for 2.5 years, and that experience actually brought it back. And there was one of the vulva owners was sticking her fingers in my mouth, and like she was in a very dominant way while this man's making out my armpit, and I'm like screaming and moaning because it feels so good. And she turns over and holds my face and just kisses me very dominantly, and it was super hot. I didn't leave it thinking I want to be with women now, or I'm attracted to women. I left it thinking, wow, I am so shiftable and shapeable. And just when I get in my own way thinking I'm Amy, who's straight and doesn't like being tickled, and then I have this most powerful sexual experience making out with a woman and having a man make out with my armpit. Gosh, how incredible is that, to be shown that I just get in my own way when I get stuck on my beliefs. Mm-hmm.
Well, in those first few times, in those early threesomes, like when you would end up being with, like, interacting with the other woman, was there any sort of like mind fuck in your head of like questioning your sexuality? Be like, oh my God, what does this mean now? Or was it?
I don't think so. I don't think there was like a judgment on it. Again, I owned a sex shop, and one of those experiences was in the sex shop. It was like, nice. Hey, let's play with some toys here in the sex shop. So no, I wasn't afraid of what it would maybe inspire me to shift into, but it was more like, I just don't really feel a lot. I'm like waiting for pleasure and arousal to come, and I just am not really there. It's like being numb, pretty much. It's same thing when I'd have sexual experiences with men I was not attracted to, or when there wasn't a connection there, or partners where my sex drive turned off based on trauma or various reasons, and then we'd still be intimate, and it's like my heart and my mind are here and wants to be with this person, but my pussy and a lot of my body are offline. It always just felt like that. So maybe, and a part of me is like, maybe it just hasn't been the right woman. I'm open to all of this. Anything is possible.
That's very cool. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people, myself included, who kind of can be stuck in the ways of like, or the beliefs of like who we are. Like I used to be a guy who like, I do not eat fish. And then, like girlfriend introduced me to a fish I like, and I'm like, hi, sometimes I have fish. It's okay. It's not the end of the world.
That fish is good. I didn't even know.
Yeah, it was something like that. But like, I think about like, I get like there's opportunity if I wanted to, but I go like, oh, I don't know, is that gonna? I'm very neurotic. Like I could see myself walking around in circles in my room for 5 hours, being like, what does that mean? I don't know. What does that say about me now? Do I have to change the things? Oh shit, I gotta buy a flag. It's like that's why I go like,
Your fish flag?
My fish flag. Yeah. It's got rainbow colors on it. I'm declaring I'm a pescatarian. So yeah, no, it's very strange. But yeah, so okay, that's cool. And then you run the sex toy shop still, and you're doing the sex educating. And what's that practice like during COVID? Like, I guess you must be doing digital workshops.
Yeah, I taught sex ed in person for over 10 years at Pure Pleasure, but also at other retail stores around the country.
Were you a hand for hire? Is that okay? I'm gonna cut that.
I was
I'm
my
embarrassed.
classes. You can keep that in there. I'm open. No, my classes are always more playful and educational and like informative, as opposed to I was not naked and touching genitals or my own genitals. I had like pussy puppets and things like that. I wasn't stepping away from that, but that was something that I was doing less and less when I started doing the coaching. So I work with clients privately, and a lot of it was in person, but a lot of it has already, before COVID, was already online, because I work with a lot of people via them finding me on the podcast, and the podcast is global. So I was already doing that. So that hasn't changed. I now maybe do occasional sex ed workshop online, but it's not my main jam. And neither is coaching. Coaching to me feels more like a service that I like to do with people. My main thing that I do as the lead educator for Uberlube, I've been that for 8 years. I've been the face of their brand.
Big fan of the Uberlube over here.
You love it.
We're
Yes,
fans
they've
at the Man Whore
sponsored you, right?
Podcast. Yeah, it's my preferred brand.
Yeah. Good stuff. The best silicone you've ever used. And my main job for them was to travel all over the country and go to retail stores, to sex shops, and teach the staff about the product. So that's changed, but we are finding plenty of other things for Amy to do for Uberlube online. And then there's the podcast, which is already mostly just remote. And as you're seeing, we're all figuring out ways to just do it all online. So yeah, I wear a lot of little hats, but I'd say my main focus really is the podcast and supporting Uberlube.
Yeah, Shameless Sex, which I had a really fun episode of, a few months ago with, I think we were talking about group sex and orgies and such. It was
one of my favorites, by the way. I did an interview there's an article on Up Rocks that was just released, and they asked me for my top favorite episodes, and that was one that I quoted. That was the first one I said.
Amy.
And he said, the interviewer said, he's like, I heard that episode. He loved it.
Stop. My head's gonna
I've had
explode.
multiple people like, I love that episode. It's one of our favorite episodes. It's so fun and informative and surprising in that way. And so we were talking about what? Group sex, gangbangs, orgies.
Yeah, so if y'all want an episode to start with, you can go dig up mine or any of them. I'm sure are fantastic. But Amy, where can people find you? Oh, also, I've got my eye on the time. Are you up for like an extra 10-ish minute bonus episode?
Yeah.
Awesome. So
totally.
$5 and up, folks. You're going to hear that bonus episode tomorrow. But Amy, where can everybody go find you and your show?
Everyone can go look up Shameless Sex on all of the apps, Google Play, Spotify, iTunes. Just look up Shameless Sex Podcast. We're on there. You can go to Instagram and Facebook. We're on there, Shameless Sex Podcast. And then our website is shamelesssex.com. And all of our information is there. And Billy, I forgot to tell you, my partner told me I'm supposed to tell you that he thinks you're awesome and loves your Instagram.
What? This is too...
Yeah, I hadn't even seen your Instagram. I looked. I was like, I see why he likes it. So yeah, he's a fan.
There's too many compliments for one day. I'm overloaded. I'm overjoyed.
You're awesome. You deserve it.
Well, Amy, why don't you go? We'll go ahead and do the bonus up in a minute. But why don't you, for now, go ahead and say goodbye to everybody.
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you for listening to me talk all about making out with walls and rape fantasies and getting finger banged to a terrible song that I never want to hear ever again.
The Man Whore Podcast is sponsored by HotMovies.com. Try out some ethical, paid-for porn for free with none of those hidden fees or secret subscriptions when you sign up at HotMovies.com and use the promo code MANWHORE. The Shameless Sex Podcast, oh yeah! Go check out, if you need an episode to start with, I highly recommend mine. It was a blast, but I hope you go follow Amy and the show on all the things. Of course, you should by now be following me. I've got that Instagram thing y'all seem to like so much. Follow me over there at Billy Is Procida. I'm on Twitter at The Billy Procida. And we've got the intern Sophia dropping hot fire memes on the Man Whore Podcast Facebook fan page. So go over there and smash that like button. And if you want to shoot me an email with your comments, let me know what you thought about this week's show. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Was it missing something you wanted? You can shoot me an email at manwhorepod@gmail.com. Tomorrow, I've got a bonus episode coming out with Amy Baldwin here over on the Patreon. So that's going to be available to all of my $5 and up members at patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. Enjoy Amy's bonus episode as well as over 100 Man Whore Podcast bonus episodes right on over there. Everybody, can you just please not be idiots like my neighbors who are having these parties every fucking day without masks with crowded groups? Can you not throw swinger parties for like a fucking minute? Can you just not be selfish and join the effort to fucking beat this thing? I'd really appreciate it. I would like to do live stand-up comedy again one day. Don't be selfish. Just stay slutty.